everyone. Members of the advisory committee that are here is Will Hathaway, Kim Moore, myself, Jan Culbertson, who is a member of the advisory committee, is joining us virtually. And then we also have members of the team from AATA as well as WAVE. And maybe we'll just go around the room and do introductions. That makes sense?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Vice President Manager of Public Affairs and Engagement at the RIDE.
Kim Moore, Planning Commission for Central Township, as well as President of the Board of Directors for WAVE.
And I'm Ken Anderson. I'm from the planning department at the AATA.
And I'm Chris Chang, fairly new to Township, project manager.
Oh, I thought you already I'm Will Hathaway. I'm the supervisor.
Okay, and I'm Joyce Parker, Township Manager. So we've gone through the roll call.
And Jan's up there in a little box.
Here.
Yeah.
Hi, Jan. Welcome.
ScioTwp Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay. The second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 19th, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Your support?
Support.
Okay.
Aye.
All right.
And those were as amended, correct? Amended by
As amended.
Yep, that's
Actually,
right. As
before
amended.
we vote on it, we might want to find out if there's any other changes to the January 19th minutes. I didn't have any. I think the changes that I received from Ken is for the February 2nd minutes.
Yes.
Yes. So any questions or comments related to the minutes? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Item 2 is the approval of the revised minutes from the February 2nd, 2024 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Here, but I'll make the motion to.
Okay. And I'll support it.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved by Kim Moore, seconded by Joyce Parker. Any questions or comments related to the motion? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 4 is a follow-up from our last meeting regarding detailed ridership information from Ken Anderson. So Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass around printed copies, and then we do have PDF copies, a PDF copy that we'll post after the meeting. So this won't be too much of a secret. So I'm going to pass these around just in case there were people that were. Yep. I'm going to keep one of them. Just we'll do a couple of these. Have some of these. So the first map that we're going to talk about is the fixed route ridership. It's the one that has the red and the blue dots on it. It's an updated version of the one that we showed at the last meeting.
Can you show us what you're?
Oh.
And you're sending the one.
Let me just take one.
There's one of them online. So this is an updated version of the ridership for routes 30, which is along the Jackson corridor running east-west at the top, and then routes 26 and 29, which is in the lower right-hand corner of the map, which services the Scioto Ridge neighborhoods and the apartment complexes and condos back there.
26 and 29 service Scioto Farms. You said.
Scioto
Scioto
Ridge
Ridge.
Road.
What are the numbers again?
So
Can you
For-
go over the numbers again? What
Pardon?
routes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Route 30 is Jackson Road.
Mhm.
And then routes 26 and 29 do the Scioto Ridge neighborhood. So that's Liberty to Scioto Ridge to Scioto Church. So we could start with Route 30. And so the way that I tried to set the map up was that the red dots,
Yeah, I'm missing it. Is it? Which one is?
You don't distinguish.
Yeah, I
Is
can't
this
tell.
just Jackson Road, this map?
no, this is, oh, sorry. So this is Jackson Road up here.
Okay.
This is Scioto Ridge down here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so where does it show Route 30? I was looking for it.
Oh,
So
Jackson.
I haven't figured out how to actually draw the lines on the map. So it's all these dots.
Got it. Okay.
We were looking for the color.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'm getting better at this. This is a lot better than the last map that I. Anything, any route that heads out from the center of downtown, we call it outbound, and then anything that heads back in is inbound. So
Just for a point of reference, on the far left, this big round circle with the red one, blue in the center, that's Meyer.
exactly. And so the buses that are headed out toward Meyer on Jackson Road are the red dots, and then the buses that are headed back into town are the blue dots.
Okay.
The big dot is Meyer, and that's the biggest ridership generator in the entire township area for us. You can see as you head a little bit farther to the east, towards Parkland Plaza, and in that area, there are people that walk from the co-housing and the businesses and the health center up from that area up and then use the service down there. Heading a little bit further east from there toward Wagner Road, a lot of that is either businesses like the car dealerships or residences. I can't tell you exactly where people come from because I only know like when somebody gets on board the bus. We can't even say like potentially where that person gets off just because, you know, they're not carrying IDs or anything like that we can scan. So on the Scioto Ridge, this little thing down here, the stop that you see, and I know Chris, this probably isn't lining up quite with your experiences yet, but the big stop that you see in the Scioto Ridge neighborhood is just to the west of either 3 or 4 rather large apartment complexes. So most of the ridership that we're getting in the Scioto Ridge neighborhoods does come from the apartments and condos on the north end of the neighborhood. All the littler dots that are in the south, that's all single family housing down in that area.
The blue
So
ones, you mean.
yes, like down here at the bottom, that's all single family down there. So our big generators are Meyer, the Parkland Plaza area, and then the apartments along Liberty and Scioto Ridge.
So
And
as
would
far
you
as-
say that stop right on Liberty inside Ridge is where you pick up a lot of people?
No, it's a little bit further down. What is the name of that? Probably about a half mile south on Scioto Ridge, south of Liberty.
So on
Your
the-
stuff. What's the name of
Yeah,
your? What's
it's,
your road?
I want to say it's Arbor, it's not Arbor Landings, Arbor,
Uplands?
Harbor Point? No.
No.
it could, it's,
No, it's not.
No, Harbor Point's out.
because Uplands are further to the west, and it's a little further south there.
I'm
It's,
doing a good job of spelling.
I know,
So
I know.
developers keep giving everything.
I know,
Very confusing.
it is, and it got renamed.
Chase
It was
Boulevard?
renamed recently too.
It's
Chase
Chase Boulevard, so it's right out by the Arbor Club Apartments, the Park at Sagebrush Circle, and then Summerfield Glen Apartments. Okay, is this your area?
Yeah, I live right, yep, over by Hometown Village. I walked to that stop.
So the big red dot, the dots here reflect the ridership on average?
Yes.
Okay.
So the littlest dot would be, and I hate that they have
Is
to use
this-
these decimal numbers, but the tiny dots are stops that have 0 to 2 people riding them. and then you go up to 2 to 5, and then 5 to 10. It just shows you a relative comparison with the actual numbers being, labeled at the stops themselves.
Mhm. So, this is on average per month.
This is for September of 2023. This is an average weekday. So
Oh, okay.
the reason what I would like to be able to give you, I'd like to be able to give you a year's worth of data, but at the stop level, because our systems are still broken, we actually, the person that was working on this actually has to take these and compile them by hand, on a spreadsheet, basically looking at all these different points on the map and going, I think that one's next to that stop and that one's next to this one, and crushing them down. So
It is old school.
it is. So we will, if everything goes well in the next couple of months, our data systems should come back up online, and we'll be able to give you, basically updated numbers on a more regular basis than what we've been able to do over the last couple of years.
Okay, so I guess the other follow-up question is, with your average daily ridership, when we're looking at maybe from 2 to 15, do you use the big buses or do you use smaller buses?
We use big buses. And the reason why we have to do that is a lot of these routes are linked up with other routes throughout the system.
Okay.
And so you never know where a bus is. Well, we do know, but you kind of never know where a bus is going to be during the day.
So
Okay.
does your Jackson bus, when it goes back downtown, does it turn into the Washington bus now?
No, it turns into a whole bunch of other things.
Okay.
Yeah, that was too simple. We had to break that up.
So if I can ask this big dot and red dot at Meyer,
Mhm.
and then you have the blue dot within it, and they're distinguished by outbound and inbound, I get that. So there's less, because it's smaller, am I to assume that blue dot, there's less people going eastbound?
I would just count that all as the same. Depending on how the person set the data up, I would think that honestly that those 55 people are probably going inbound, because these are boardings, they're not alightings. So if I had done this, I probably would have made that 55.7 blue. Or
Well, you do
combine
have
them.
a
It's
55 and a 4.6.
right. I think those are probably actually, the whole thing is probably 60 altogether, because it's the end of the route. So it's broken up for whatever reason into two separate things, even though it's the same stop. So I would just consider that 60, because the bus only goes one way from that circle,
Yeah, but it go,
if that makes sense.
no, it does, I mean, I understand what you're saying, it just, it wouldn't make sense that what you're saying is not true, because presuming people are coming outside of SIO to come into work in Meyer, let's say. They would-
Right,
They
but-
would travel back in.
Right. But we don't have, what's a better word for this? Deboardings. I don't have a
No,
map.
but don't
of
you
that.
have ridership pickup on your inbound? You count ridership going in, right?
We do, but there's only one stop at Meyer.
That's okay. So you don't close that out. You don't close that trip out and then you start a new trip on your inbound.
With our software, if that was working correctly, it would do that, and it would actually put those all on the inbound. But this one, she was doing it quickly and probably just stuck them all in the outbound. But no, that's a really good point and a good observation.
Yeah, because when I was a bus driver, we used to not flush out, but we would time out that trip. And so that, I think that just presumably you were distinguishing that information.
The drivers probably do, the planner probably didn't. So, are there any more questions on that side? Then we can switch over to the other map that just has red dots on it.
Mhm.
And what this one shows, and again, because of the systems that we have aren't really fully functioning, this is one that I put together. So if there are weird things like the red dots and blue dots, you can, it's my doing. What this one shows is for our A-Ride service. A-Ride is demand response, which means curb to curb or door to door service.
Mhm.
And that is the service that's required by the Americans with Disabilities Act. It basically says that anywhere that you run a fixed route bus, you have to make door to door service available within 3/4 of a mile of that route. And so what this shows is I combined like at the different apartment complexes, there were probably at some of them 6 or 7 different addresses. I just combined them all into one big thing that says apartments instead of doing the individual addresses and stuff like that. So what this shows are for A-Ride service, any trip that has an origin or a destination within Scioto Township, these are the locations. And so this is a month's worth of data. So this is all trips for September 2023, shown broken out by stops. And so over by where Chris lives, you can see down in that Scioto Ridge neighborhood, we do have quite a bit of usage down there. And so what those numbers are saying is over the course of September 2023, within that Summerfield Glen Apartments complex, there were 72 trips that either started or ended there. 68 for Arbor Club Apartments, 35 for Sagebrush. And then, so those may or may not have, or, you know, they're, even though they started, they end at that point. Some of them probably go into Ann Arbor. Some of them might go to Pittsfield, depending. So those are other maps that are a little bit harder to put together, and they basically look like spaghetti when you get them because you just have lines going every place. So for our purposes, it was a lot clearer to show where, you know, to show these individual areas as individual stops.
No, it's helpful, thank you.
So these are primarily the pickups.
It's either a pickup or a drop off.
Drop off, okay.
Think trips.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
wouldn't most of them be round trips?
Not necessarily.
No.
It just depends on where they're going. I mean, like, let's say if this was a multi-leg trip, if somebody went off to Ann Arbor and then came back up here and then went back down that way,
Oh.
it might not necessarily show up as a just back and
I
forth
see.
trip.
It's not so simple as just, I'll
Yeah.
take it both ways.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So there's only 19 people in September that used a ride to get to Meyer,
I was a little surprised by that.
or picked up from Meyer, I guess.
I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah.
And then
Do you still do your group rides, your senior rides? where
Yes.
You pick up people, take them to grocery stores?
Mhm.
Do you take them to that grocery store?
I could check into that one.
Because that might be, assuming some of the ridership there.
Well, this doesn't reflect wave, does it?
No.
Correct. No, they do group trips. They take seniors.
This, yeah,
But-
these
but this-
maps
but
are
this-
just AATA.
Right.
Right, but this doesn't show that, because I'm thinking that maybe that's why the number is
Yeah.
lower at Meyer, because some of that ridership that you would think would be a ride would
That's a
be
good
wave
Mhm.
instead.
Okay, so you want to know if we do senior ride grocery trips to the Meyer on Jackson?
Yeah.
Okay.
And usually the way they used to work is there'd be a location, like used to pick up people downtown on the Fourth Ave, right there, on the Fourth Ave, and pick up people at the senior place out in Carpenter, and there'd be different locations out here. And we used to pick them up on Eisenhower at that senior spot. So I'm curious if you have
Okay.
a senior spot in Rock and Scioto that you
Okay.
pick up senior.
Yep, I could definitely find that out.
Yeah, that's good information to have too.
Going all transit.
So this looks to be primarily apartment focused. And then like even the health center, I don't know for Wave, how big, you know, your demand response or the flex route services are down for the health center down on Parkland Plaza, but it's a little surprised that there wasn't more people going down that way either.
Yeah, all of that.
Well, there's,
Our rides go more to the homeless centers.
Okay.
there's also INJ up on Jackson.
Jackson.
Mhm.
That one didn't even show up.
Yeah, I didn't see it here, but it's right by, it's just west of that Parkland Plaza
Right.
Street. I mean, actually, it's right there. It's like within feet of that traffic. light there.
So this gives us a feeling of where services are currently.
Thank you, Ken.
Any questions for Ken? That we haven't asked already.
What do people pay for your A-Ride service?
It has to be the same as what a fixed route fare is, so $1.50.
$1.50? When you fix it, it's $1.50.
Okay, there's no other questions for Ken. We'll move on to item 5. We have requested from Chris, and survey.
So correction to what you and I talked about today. So last time we were talking, we said that the Jackson Road route was going to Meyer and the AAPA transfer every hour. That route is going every 2 hours, but between our Jackson Road connector and our other community connector, we are at Meyer every hour.
Yeah, but it's not servicing the other communities that chose the Meyer, the without Fort Jackson area, so it isn't.
No, it has stops at Scio Farms and
Yeah,
Lake Stone, and both of them do. But
that would be west of Meyer. Fire
again,
Farm is west of Meyer.
then yes.
Well,
Yeah.
both of the community connectors, the connectors go to Sile Farms, Menards, Meyer. And then the Parkland Plaza for the co-housing, and they both do those stops.
Okay, so slow down, because I'm not sure that's correct.
So just to clarify, Maria, you're saying that you have, it's two different services. However, with the combination of the two, you're getting there every hour.
Correct.
Okay, so other than Wave, what's the name of the other service?
So WAVE is our organizational name.
Yeah.
We have the Jackson Road connector that just goes along Jackson Road, and then we have a community connector that connects Chelsea, Dexter, Scio to Ann Arbor.
So I'm looking at your, and it's everything west of Meyer. Your community connector.
Yeah, and then the Jackson Road connectors, you're asking they both.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is that I'm just focusing on the Jackson Road corridor, that the coverage. I thought that the additional dollars, the pass-through dollars, were to provide additional frequency along Jackson Road from Meyer to where you stop at, which is Jackson Plaza. And that's not true, because it's running every 2 hours. It's not running every half hour like AATA.
Correct.
So the coverage is not, the coverage is,
The
and if you,
frequency.
and I kind of looked at the times, they don't even match up, so it's just, I misunderstood.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I was thinking that instead of it, like AATA is providing every half hour from 6 AM to 11 PM, that's some good coverage for us, and I was thinking that Jackson Road, your piece was bringing making it every 20 minutes, just along that stretch, Meyer to Jackson Plaza. I thought maybe we could get some more frequency like that.
Mhm.
It's so infrequent. I don't think it's happening.
Yeah,
That's the only point I'm trying to make.
great. Yep.
Okay.
Right. Any questions for Maria or Kim? Okay, Chris, you want to talk about the survey?
Yeah, I put together a survey and it's also can be found online. And I tried to condense some information. I just want to thank Ken for all his help, because really without him, I wouldn't probably be able to put this table together. So thank you, Ken. And let me know if there's any corrections. I also had a brief discussion with Marie this morning. So I will update this chart because it should also include door-to-door service for Scioto Township. So that was part of it that was included.
Is this something we get, Chris?
Yes, it should be in your, if it's not in your packet, I've got a copy of it if you'd like one.
Could be in the back.
There you go. Yep. Is anybody else? Yeah, I think it was in the packet, but if not, I've got extras. So I will I will update that also to add door-to-door service with Scioto Township. If we're going to focus on Scioto Township, we've got a number of fixed routes, 3. That was already previously discussed with the 30, the 26, and the 29. Looks like all the municipalities or government agencies have A-Ride. Gold Ride is provided by the cities in Ypsilanti Township. Flex Ride, late night, again, cities, Ypsi Township and Pittsfield Township. Wave, I've just included with just Scioto Township at this point. If I understood the numbers correctly, and maybe you can help me with this, Ken, is I believe that 468,000 approximately from the purchase of service agreement that's with Scioto Township, that is including 104,000, approximately 105,000 for wave. That's
what I understand it to be.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's,
Oh,
I
it's
believe it's included.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so.
It is.
So
I don't think it's funded by the DDA.
that's,
No, it's funded, by the millage.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the.
okay,
transit
so I will correct
Yeah.
that then and state that that's by the
Yeah.
millage.
Yeah.
Although the DDA may be open to chipping in, I don't think they're gonna
Okay.
be able to chip in that much.
Yeah, I think it's the millage.
So I will correct that for the
The
DDA.
millage district is
I would also.
focused down though into that corridor. It's not a township wide millage though.
Mhm.
Oh, okay,
I'll
So-
also say that the three fixed routes that you have just represent the AATA fixed route.
Right.
Because Wave has the two additional, one that is just in ScioTwp and another one that's connected to communities, including ScioTwp.
okay.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, Chris. So in 2023, the total cost for SIO was $468,875.
Yeah.
It's of that 461K, 100 or 105 of that figure went to Wave.
That's my understanding,
Okay.
unless
I think
somebody,
It's a little bit higher than the 468 because.
is it 468?
Yeah, no, it must be in the letter that we got, it says 468, okay, I thought it was higher than that,
But it goes up 2024, 2029.
yeah.
Ken, I just want to make sure I understand what you were saying just a moment ago. So the reason that it may refer to the DDA is that it's only being levied on
As
people.
I understand it, it's a special assessment district, but double check on that. To
Yeah.
be sure.
Well, because the service, as we talked about at the January meeting, you know, there's a service that extends because of that fixed route out, you know, to
Mhm.
basically all of Scioto Township for the A ride. So it's not as if it's only the fixed route, immediate, you know, adjacent,
Location.
you know, locations that would benefit. Now I will have to find out.
Good.
Yep, by all means.
Okay,
And then I started to do some calculations, which are not part of this. I want to probably double check because as I just want to make sure my math is correct because I was just trying to figure out what it was as an average per rider. When I used, I believe there was I just got a quick email actually from Ken when I was looking through the numbers. I looked at it from the total ridership and the townships in the two cities versus those numbers that I have as far as the purchase of service agreement. I'll calculate those up, but my initial finding was it appears that ScioTwp does pay a little bit more per rider, but I don't want to make a statement until I've actually
Okay.
confirmed those numbers.
Are you combining his numbers and our numbers?
No, I think I actually subtracted that out when I subtracted the wave number out of that.
so that should be added because that's part of the cost.
Yeah.
We pay.
Yeah, but if he calculates it based on ridership, he's got to take the numbers.
Right,
because That wouldn't be true. He could unless he uses all the ridership.
Right, that's what I'm
down
saying.
And ATA
Yeah,
on the total amount.
Right, because this is a total millage amount. In order to have total ridership, you need Ken's data and Wave's data.
so can we get your,
But you can,
Yeah, I shared it in the
Divide it
last
up
meeting
too.
for
Yeah.
2023,
okay.
and I can share it again.
Okay,
Yes, we can
Yeah,
add them
that's-
up.
yep,
Yeah.
we
And
can do
then
that. We can make,
we can also do the two separate numbers. If you
correct,
see the difference between the wave
Yeah.
cost and the.
exactly. We
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
do that. We
would be
can
a big help.
separate wave from the,
so I have a question
The
for you,
fixed.
Chris. On the right side of your chart, under SIO, you say that the 468,875, I realize that's for 23. Is purchase of service funded by the DDA, it's funded by the
For the
millage.
millage.
correct, yep,
Yeah.
I'll make that correction.
Okay.
Yep, we,
Mhm. And that was really for 22-23. Now, for 23-24, which is our current fiscal year, is 497,071. So it's higher. And then
That's right.
for the upcoming fiscal year, starting in April of 2024, it's about 580,000.
I have a question about our
It
our
is.
millage. What was our original millage? What was the time frame of it?
I thought it Thought someone had mentioned 10 years. Is it 10 years?
Familiar.
Yeah,
But I looked at my
Years.
tax,
but this is the last
and I didn't
year.
have any taxes taken out for transportation in 2019,
Okay.
but I did for 21,
Well, I
20,
did ask,
21.
yeah, I asked our assessor to maybe give me more research, the history of what's happened, so hopefully I'll have that information relatively soon.
I was just curious because I
Yeah,
didn't
so
see
that-
those payments coming out.
Did you look at both winter and summer?
Yes, sir. It
Okay.
comes out in the winter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because
Okay.
it only would come out one time a year, but
Sure,
you
sure.
knew that.
I never paid attention to it until I got to this committee.
Okay, the other question I have on the survey is with, the Gold Ride and the Flex Ride. Why isn't that something that SCIO participates in? It may be a good reasonable explanation, but I don't know what it is.
So I'm gonna pass, and this will be something I think that'll help us feed into once we start talking about the goals that we want to accomplish.
Yeah.
This will definitely help feed into that, some different
Okay.
types of surveys that'll help with that.
Yeah,
You have so many handouts today.
yeah.
I feel like I'm actually useful.
Educated on your transcript.
So if you open up to the back, there's a
One
big
more?
fold out map. One more, one more.
Oh, no, I think we got it.
I'll take an.
Take all the cards you want.
Yeah, there you go. They got plenty.
So in the
We'll
back.
get one to
is the-
Jan.
Yes. In the map in the back. So what you see on the big map is most of the lines, the ones that you guys were looking for earlier are on this map. So the lines that are on the map are the fixed route buses. These areas here, this orange area that's in Pittsfield Township and this purple area that's in Ypsilanti Township, those are called flex ride services. And those are door-to-door services, kind of like a ride, except for anybody can use them. So there's an app that people use to actually, you can either call in to book a trip or you can use an app to book a trip. But basically anywhere within this purple zone in a connection to the transit center in downtown Ypsilanti, anybody that lives there or works there or wants to be able to use these little dial-a-ride vehicles can make a trip anywhere within that purple zone. The same thing with Pittsfield Township.
But they have to stay within the area.
Yeah.
That's designated.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the same thing with Pittsfield Township. They anywhere within those orange zones and then connecting up to Meyer. If you want to get on the regular route buses, the transfers are made up at Meyer. So same thing, anywhere within that orange zone, people can ride from any point to any point.
Kind of like our old dollar ride.
Exactly. Isn't it amazing how everything's just coming back? Nothing is new.
They couldn't wait to get rid of that expensive service.
So the reason why they chose to do that is because both townships actually had bus routes that extended further down into here and extended further down into the deeper into the southern Ypsilanti
Yeah.
Township. We found out that there's just because it's all really low density area, a lot of it's actually farmland. And apparently deer and cows don't like to ride for some reason. That moving back to the dial-a-ride is a more cost-effective solution for doing and I don't have these numbers. Like the millage numbers and things that I've requested from our finance people, we've actually had 2 sudden departures from finance, which is 2/3 of the department. So I don't have our official numbers this year for cost per service hour for either the fixed route or the flex ride services. I will get those so that you can see that for the dial-a-ride, it is quite a bit cheaper to offer a dial-a-ride service than it is to offer a fixed route bus.
Mhm.
As you guys very well.
Okay, so-
Yeah, when you do rural transportation, then you know.
So Ken, when you say dial-a-ride, is that the same as flex ride?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, I'll say,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, so to use the flex ride service, it is the cost per hour, cost per rider is quite a bit.
Yeah, I'd
more.
be interested in knowing what that cost is per rider.
Yeah,
Yes,
and is that because? So when you're running your fixed route, imagine this, when you're running your fixed route, you're running it, whatever those hours are, 6 to 10, 6 to
Exactly.
9. You're paying that driver, you're using that gas, etc. Whether somebody's on it or not.
Mhm.
And under your flex, you're paying for what you're using. You're using for what you pay, or however. I should say.
Yeah.
We're
Pay for what you
restructuring
get.
the contract. The contract, the way that it is right now, is not incentive based. It's actually per hour and per mile. We're getting rid of that model altogether. We're rebidding out all the flex ride services to do exactly what you're saying.
I heard you, but I didn't get.
Didn't understand.
Right now, the flex ride is set up. I shouldn't say this way. The flex ride is set up so that we are paying whether the vehicle is moving or not, whether it's making a trip or not. We are actually going out to do an RFP. It's actually in process right now to completely rebid out that contract to modernize it so that it's more incentivized and only pays for by the trip instead of doing it by the hour.
So instead of like our door-to-door services where we're paying our drivers for, you have rides between 8 and 4 and we're paying them for that time, regardless of how many riders they have. They may go home early if they don't have anyone at the end of the day. They're switching to more of an Uber type of model where you're paying for just that ride.
That's not all bad.
So, but that's gonna put a crimp in your ability to hire. Well, you don't.
We subcontract for those.
So it's gonna put,
So that also works.
Okay.
it's,
Because I've done a Dollar Ride where I didn't have any riders and I just sat around and hot dogs.
So
Is that gonna put pressure on?
Can you use a service like Uber for something like that?
That's part of the contract that's going to be explored is can they supplement at certain times of the day? Can we set up a contract with Uber to
Yeah.
fill in those gaps?
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting.
I'm just gonna say, it's gonna put pressure on Wave.
In what ways?
Well, would you be bidding on these things too, or no?
No, because the only service area we overlap with is SCIO.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So you'll get back with us to kind of give us an idea of what that cost might be as it stands now versus what it might be under some other arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It's still, even under the current arrangement, it's still significantly cheaper than the fixed route
If
buses.
you're doing that, okay. And so why is it just, again, has it been discussed in the past related to Township?
No,
You just never had a conversation?
no. And
Okay.
the flex ride zones, especially for FC Township, those are relatively new. So
Okay,
even though it's a technology that's been out there since the 1960s, it's something that's only been really 1960s, 1970s. It's only been something that we've been talking to the partners about for the last maybe 5 or so years.
okay,
So this feels like a great opportunity to talk to this committee about it.
absolutely.
Well, I'm a little bit worried.
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds great. But I'd be worried about your ability to maintain, well, you say you contract those two, in particular Pittsfield and the Ypsilanti Flex service out.
What are you thinking?
Well, I'm just wondering, cheaper drivers, I mean, they can't compete, they obviously are gonna bid on these contracts at a lower price. Because it's not cheap to run door to door,
So
however you do it, flex or otherwise.
the companies that are bidding out on that right now, the big one is called Via.
Mhm.
And they have contracts, they have a contract with Smart over in the suburbs. They have contracts all throughout the country. So part of the way that they're able to kind of get some of their cost efficiencies is they're able to leverage just the volume of vehicles that they can buy. The insurance, the insurance pool is much larger. Yes, they probably aren't paying the union wages, so that's a little bit lower, but because there's the companies that do this type of stuff are so large, they can spread those costs and those risks out to a much larger pool than we could.
Mhm.
So, we've had this discussion about east and west coverage in the county. And I won't bore you with the details, but in thinking about that, Marie, would you be able to even consider doing some flex on this kind of model that Kim's talking about?
So we do door to door in SCIO and all of our other communities right now. It has not worked in the past for rural areas to use via Uber, Lyft type of models because the rides are much fewer between and they're much longer. those, when the Chelsea Senior Center, as an example, got a grant to try and leverage Lyft to do transportation for older adults in their membership. And they only had a handful of successful rides. Other drivers would just not show up, or they would claim it. And then that morning they would say no, and then the seniors are left with no ride. And so, and we see that in rural areas.
They would say, yes, we'll take that ride.
Yeah, so like, yeah, when you book ahead of time on Lyft, they'll say, hey, Joe Schmo is your driver for tomorrow. And then Joe Schmo doesn't show up. No show. Yeah, and so it tends not to work in rural areas. Spoiler alert, we do have a Pingo is a competitor with Via, and they're letting us do a free pilot with apps and bookings and things like that to help make our door-to-doors more efficient, to help group people in our small buses better, just be better with all of that. But yeah, but we will likely not be moving to that kind of Lyft model.
You pay for what you get, or you get what you pay for.
Right, agreed. And what we found out when we actually started digging into our data with the way that the Flex Ride service is currently set up is that they were pretty much running single trips. Every trip was a single trip. It was just one person per vehicle. And so without doing what other company or what other agencies do to incentivize, keeping your productivity above a certain level, and then you're incentivized to do that without having that directly built into the contract. It wasn't as efficient as it could be. So we're still talking with Smart. They helped us build the RFP based on, they have zones all over Metro Detroit now. And then we've looked at a couple different places like Dallas and other places that we're getting into heavily. This is, to throw another term out there, Flex Ride, the technical name for it's called microtransit. We just talked to some other agencies about what their microtransit operated and then picked the best model for our area. So someday, if you are interested in that, the RFP is out there and I can send that along if you're interested, but it's very boring.
Okay, so.
Sorry, there was a question. I know, Joyce, you had a minute ago. So what that means is what we're also using the microtransit in the other two townships to do is kind of feel out eventually we'll get a map that looks like this with, where the destinations are and things like that. And so eventually, if it turns out that, there's some very heavily used destinations, that might be a place where you can introduce a different type of service. Maybe 5 years, 10 years in the future, it might be a place to put a bus service back. It's kind of an intermediate level to kind of help gauge where ridership is.
See exactly what the activity is. Yeah.
So for instance, the A-Ride service that you provide now, would Flex be able to cover that?
Some of it, yes.
Okay, I mean, all of it.
I don't think we're allowed to do that. We can encourage people to get off of
But
it.
you're bound by providing that service. I'm just trying to,
It would definitely lower the cost.
oh, yeah. But, so my take on, the current and the future is that transportation is even more important. Okay, given climate change, aging population, etc. So it's really important. And so if you spend the dollars, make sure the dollars are serving the people. Not just like saying we got a flex service, but only 10 people can ride every 2 months. Or people are not showing up for rides and that kind of thing. So I'm just throwing, that's just my ego.
One thing now you're making me think about this. One thing that I can ask on that RFP, I don't know if they combined them because they were talking about changing over the model for the A-Ride service as well. The underlying model for it too, but the trips have to be guaranteed for an ADA service. If you run into a situation like was being described with Lyft, you will get in trouble with the FTA for that. So there has to be a guaranteed level of service. and an NEADA contract, but I know they were talking about rebidding that out to shift the model a little bit toward the incentive-based one. I can look into that to see if we are doing that now, or if that was broken up into a flex ride RFP and then an A ride one is coming up later. But they were looking in for the exact same reasons that you're saying there. They will be looking into it at some point to try to change the underlying structure of A ride as well.
And what do you, in your current A-Ride service? You're picking up. This is a month, so you're picking up about 250 people you picked up in September. So we would want to see, in terms of changing service on that one. I mean, cheap is what it is, it's cheap. So the question in my mind is, will we be losing, and I think I just said this before, some kind of doing stuff, I'm sorry. I'm thinking it through as I'm talking to you too, but trying to discern what you're saying in the moment. The question in my mind is, would the level of service go down under that flex model?
For A ride, we're not allowed to.
No. I'm just looking at what you're doing currently. That we're not even paying for it, but you're picking up this. I realize this is just a snapshot, but 200 people in a month. We could get a flex ride.
Oh,
we would pay for.
Got it.
That's picking up less people. I don't consider that
Understood.
productive.
Yeah.
For our community.
I think
Nope.
Jan has her hand up.
Oh, good spotting. Good spotting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question about the flex ride and whether, the experience in the other townships, and is there a certain density of people that support the flex ride? Just to try and figure out, because obviously Scio is a lot different than Ypsi Township and Pittsfield as far as population and also the style of housing, density of housing. So that was my question.
That is a wonderful planner question. Yes, there is a certain level of density. No, I can't tell you what that is, but I don't have the exact number of like units per acre or anything like that, but we're finding that within Pittsfield, the areas that are doing very well are the areas that either have business parks, apartment complexes, or commercial shopping areas. The residential stuff, if it's a big single family housing neighborhood, that doesn't do quite as well. But when you have condo complexes and duplexes and things like that are a little more concentrated, it does much better than the lower, the really low density areas.
So you're probably picking up a lot of people off that Scio, Ann Arbor Slough Road area, where all of that residential apartments, houses, actually, and then you have all of the new shops along the Ann Arbor Slough Road area.
And then Scio Farms and whatever the name of that little area is where State Street intersects with Michigan Ave with the Walmart. That does a lot down in there. And then Sam's Club area further up Michigan Ave. And then there are some apartments and mobile home parks south of Sam's Club on Carpenter Road that those do pretty well in there too. So yeah, I agree completely, Jan, that there's a certain level of density that's needed to achieve that. But microtransit is considered to be successful if you get up. What's the number you guys use? I mean, we're only talking 1 to 2 people per hour for that.
Yeah, we still call it productivity, but 1 to 2 people per hour.
Somewhere around there. So it's not, the expectation for that is not like fixed route where, we definitely want to see things that are 10 is considered terrible for a lot of fixed route in high density areas.
Goal, can you kind of share with
yes.
us what that is? And again, if it had been considered beforehand for a site.
So the Gold Ride is specific to, it's a service that's for people aged, see if I get this right, Jeff, 65. It was either 64 or 65 and above, that don't necessarily meet ADA, the traditional ADA requirements. So they don't have disabilities or anything like that. It's a service that's layered on top. It's considered a premium service. That's layered on top of the ADA service that opens it up to a wider group of people. So it's a door-to-door, curb-to-curb type service, but it's for anybody within that.
That's
That's yep.
Okay.
And then I believe that one gets billed directly to the jurisdictions. Like for Ann Arbor and Ipsy gets paid out of the millages, but then the townships that have it, then they get charged directly for the trips that are used in that service.
So if you meet the age requirement, there's no fare?
No, help me on this one too.
Ooh, you got me. We will double check.
We will definitely double check. I believe it's an elevated fare. It's not the base fare of 50. I believe it's above 150. It's above that.
Oh.
So it's because it's considered a premium service.
So I was picking that up where it says eligible seniors travel free on a fixed route.
That's a fixed
That's
route.
a fixed, right? So this is
But the door-to-door
Door-to-door,
service, we
yeah.
definitely charge for that.
Okay, so maybe find out what that charge is.
So there's a fee to the rider, and there's a fee also paid from the building.
So is that
It could be.
maybe what you just said, Will, but I'm processing.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that it's paid for
gotta
like
be in here.
by the municipality, or is it paid for by the rider?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
See, there's a fair and they get billed.
I don't
Or it's millage comes.
know this for dial-a-ride type services. Does it say in there?
Yeah, Gold Ride fares along the fixed route is free because it's part of fixed route. One-way trip is $20. Additional passengers are $5 each. And if someone is verified low income, they get a reduced fare of $5.
So what happened during the pandemic is we found that on a lot of those type of trips, what was being described in the rural areas, it's kind of happening here. We were having these very long trips. And so if you're going from Scioto Township all the way over to Ypsilanti Township, or even further east, like some people like to do for that, and you're doing a door-to-door ride, the cost for that is huge. And so the fare was restructured on Gold Ride to incentivize people to switch over to the fixed route as much as possible. It's always been higher than what a fixed route is, but the $20 cost is a more recent thing as an attempt on request from the townships that implement it and the cities to implement that to kind of incentivize people to move over to the more cost-effective options.
So the $20 fee is split between some fare that the rider pays, or is
It's
that
$20 for the rider.
that's what the rider pays? Okay, so any cost,
$15.
okay, but there's a cost to the municipality as well for that ride.
It's probably not as great. I mean, this was meant to also help offset a lot of that large cost, but yeah, there's definitely a cost to the municipality.
So there's kind of a de-incentive to use that in the cost.
And then and I don't know for Gold Ride on this, but for the other traditional services, fares make up for us a very small portion. This number just fell out of my
I
head.
think you guys said about 10%.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And so then a large portion of the cost of an actual hour of operation for service, fares that go into it. There is the millages, or the Pittsfield pays out of their general fund. But then there's also, for every dollar that we put into the system, a certain percentage of that, around, finance is just very my thing, it's around 30 to some percent gets matched by federal funding and gets matched by state funding. So a very large percentage of whatever, any dollar that the millages, the local millages put in also gets matched to a certain percentage. And it's a very large, it's at least 30 some percent.
Yeah.
It's matched with state, it's matched with state and federal funding to help cover those costs as well.
So speaking of fairs, we learned that someone could get on Waves Bus at Sile Farms, pay their fare, and that's about $2. Let's say a regular person.
Sure.
Is that maybe about $2?
Up for that distance, it's like 50 cents or $1, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a
That
fair.
distance.
I know what example she's doing. And yeah,
So
there's
they
a
pay
fair.
the fare and then they transfer the AAT's bus in Meyer, go to work somewhere in Ann Arbor, and then they pay another $1.50. So I'm wondering,
Did we get that? What was the, they don't have to pay full fares going back and forth between the systems, do they?
I don't have anything that says that they don't. I do have on our 2023 contract at the very end. I just saw this when Chris and I were on the phone earlier that Wave did lower our fares for those routes to match your fares, but it doesn't say anything about the transfers.
Okay.
so, I mean, so anyway, this is what I'm trying to get to. It seems, although it seems rather inexpensive, it seems, even though you're separate entities, Waves a separate entity in AATA, I wonder if it's possible to do transfers so people don't have to pay another fare. Either way, either going home back to Sile, get your bus in downtown Ann Arbor, they come out to Meyer, and they want to get to Sile Farms without walking. Is there a way that we can create some kind of different transfer or greens, whatever color is opposite what you use in your regular ridership? Because then they can't double dip that way. But I'm just for those two services, and it's a good way to it might be a good system of figuring out how many people are doing that too, because you're gonna at either end, you're gonna be gathering those transfers. Or that's just one idea I had. So I'm wondering if AA, I know I've spoken with Marie, they're willing to go to that system. And I'm wondering if AATA would be willing. I realize you can't say that right now, say some money,
But it's something to really take a look at, especially, if you're looking at trying to offer other options to riders, but at the same time, not continue to increase the cost of providing a service.
But I would have to assume from that to be somewhat of a nominal number, but we can definitely look into that.
The only complication is this would have to be a longer term thing, because when we switched over to a policy governance board, that is one of the areas that the board maintains direct control over. So anything that has to do with fares and changing fare policy is something that has to be run and approved by the board.
So you went from, you use a transfer within your system of AATA.
Mhm.
You use a transfer one time. You went from that. Remember, let's say you came from Ipsy and you transferred to another bus to go somewhere within Ann Arbor. They got a transfer in downtown Ipsy, they get on the next bus, and that transfer was taken by the driver. To a allotted time for
Yes.
a person to get on a bus in Ipsy, get off at Kmart on Washtenaw, pick up whatever their kids' basketball, and then get back on the Washtenaw bus, get to Ann Arbor, using that same transfer. They can get downtown Ann Arbor and use that transfer a third time to go out to Ellsworth. So I'm just using that as an example. So is that your system right now? Where you give
Over
it
to
like
day
45
passes?
minutes or 50
No, I
minutes
think-
on that? Because it had a time, the driver was
It
still
was a 90, it
carrying
used to
it
be
off
90
for it at a
minutes.
time, so they had to do all that within that time frame. Are you still doing that? Do you know, Jeff?
I don't. I'm on week 5, so we're still.
Right. I'm leaning on Jeff and he's doing really well.
Just learned my way around the building last week. So.
Quick study.
That's
Yeah.
a tough building.
Yeah, it is.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I used to have to go in for TCC meetings and I would always go down the wrong hallway.
So can
Yeah,
you
while
look into
you're
it?
looking for that information, I have another sort of thought and a question too. The DDA in Ann Arbor, has a Go Pass program for businesses that are in the DDA. I'm kind of curious how that program works and whether that would be something that SCIO could do, because obviously our DDA is primarily along Jackson Road and Wagner to Liberty. So, yeah, I'd be
So how-
really interested in how that works.
Yeah.
Go-
How
Those
does-
passes, I don't know if they're annual passes, and they were
That's your
$15
pass.
per employee, but I don't know if they're still that. But those are awesome because it makes it easy to promote public transit. Yep.
Well, so that got expanded. You don't have to be a downtown business anymore.
I don't think somebody turned his.
It says sponsored passes where Go Pass is listed under,
Pardon.
so
You can be
someone
downtown business.
is
Yeah.
sponsoring those, so.
So the way-
Page 6 has the day passes. Multi-ride passes is a day pass, which you indicated it's $3. Full fare tokens. Multi-ride passes for youth value, half fares. Mhm.
So the way.
So do you still ride for free,
So
unlimited?
the way that the Go Pass works is it's kind of set up like a medical insurance model. So if the DDA actually acts as a large business. And so if there wasn't a DDA there, it would be, we would go into an area, we would charge every business a certain amount within that area. And then the businesses that really don't use their passes that heavily are subsidizing, the people that do. It's just, it's like medical insurance. It's what we do for the university.
Oh, so businesses do.
So they contribute a little bit, but what the DDA came in, the DDA said that we want to incentivize everybody because they used to have really severe parking problems. So they wanted to get people out of the decks downtown. So what they do is they come in and they subsidize a certain percentage of the pass per year, and I think we charge them back by rider.
Mhm.
So we have a negotiated fee that we charge them per ride. Then we charge how many ever, it's a really low cost that actually gets charged to the business, but the business buys them for every single person in their company. And then they can either give them out or not. So the DDA pays the bulk of the pass, the business chips in a little bit, and then the business is free if they feel like it to pass that cost along to their rider.
Yeah, I mean, with my firm, I used to get them. I didn't have to pay anything. I mean, I was a small, it was only like 3, 4.
It's really low. I mean, $5-10, something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Actually,
very
right, I did pay $10. Yeah.
And so that's something that we have a kind of a standardized fare that we charge against that pass and then against U of M, it's based on the amount of usage and the average cost per rider and stuff like that. But yes, that's exactly what it's meant to be targeted for, is like a very small clustered set of businesses. Other places around the country actually will do them for, like Boulder, will do them for residential areas. So if there's a set of neighbors that want to get together and go out and recruit all their neighbors, then they actually can have their own version of the Go Pass out there. But we've never dabbled in that out here.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the survey?
Whom would we put, if the SCIO DDA wanted to explore further the Go Pass model, whom would we put them in touch with at Ann Arbor's DDA to talk about how it works?
I work with the planners there.
Okay.
I can get a person. I can definitely get you that if you might put that on my list. I'll find somebody.
And from our side, that's housed within our department. So we have one staff member in particular who is tasked with managing the Get Downtown programs. So have to provide any info from our side as well.
If you want to talk with, her name is Lillian Webb. She's our business services coordinator. You're very welcome to talk with her as well.
BB.
Yep.
And then she's at 18.
Correct.
Yes. She runs the Get Downtown program, which is the overseer of the Go Pass, and then helping the DDA down there incentivize people to do anything except for bring your car downtown.
Okay, so it sounds like that's something we should really do some research on. Yeah. Okay, any other, a lot of good information, by the way, thank you. Any other comments? So this actually will lead us into a discussion that Ken had suggested that perhaps, before moving further, we should kind of talk about, now we talked about ideas and options to enhance services. So item 8, let me get it started. 7 on the agenda is maybe having some discussion related to transportation goals. And then from there, kind of focus our effort in that particular area.
So the suggestion that after talking a little bit with Forrest was it might be helpful if we look at, the areas of the township where there's going to be future development and places like that, to kind of come up start again. The way that when we interact with Superior and Superior and Pittsfield townships is they come to us with a set of goals that says, we have development that's happening in this part of the township. We'd like to be able to explore offering service out there. We have an area over here where there already is service. Is it enough service? Is it too much service? Can you guys go back and, examine what would be the cost if we were to beef up service in the Washington corridor or something like that? So the suggestion that we have for the committee is, can we prioritize a set of goals for us and my team to be able to explore? So if you guys say you want to go out to the Baker Road area, we can work with Wade. We can then, if you have a goal like that, or if you want to go down to the southern part of the township, or if you just want to enhance service along Jackson Road corridor, if you can come up with a couple high level objectives like that, we can go through and work with Wade to see, is this, if you want to go to Baker Road, is an AATA bus the best way to go? Maybe, maybe not. Is it something where maybe Wave kind of increases their service a little bit? Is it a flex ride area? If you can tell us where you want to go, if you want to expand, or if you don't want to expand, if you want to work on existing services, kind of what are the objectives that you want to work on, then we can go back and kind of develop scenarios and bring those back to say, this is what it potentially might cost if you were to do a flex ride. This is what it might cost if you were to do a bus, and then come back with some options for you guys to be able to kind of examine and give feedback on that way.
And I actually think this is a good time to maybe look at that discussion because, this committee is supposed to be putting together some recommendations by the end of March, and we're getting close to the end of February. So it would be helpful, I think, to focus a little bit more. And in doing that, we compiled a great deal of information. But I do think perhaps we should start kind of focusing on the areas we want to address as part of moving forward. So that's just my thought.
Of the ridership information, like this chart that you provided, Ken, that shows the big dot on the mire. That's all traffic that's either heading in or out of Ann Arbor. Do we know also how much traffic is coming to that dot from the west?
Yeah, I have that data.
We picked that up from Wade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we could sort of,
Yeah.
because it seems like sort of adding that up, is because I my feeling is, and I read an article and I can't remember where I got this from about fixed route, sort of two different approaches to planning buses and mass transit, and one of them was sort of the fixed route sort of ridership model, and the other one was sort of like the coverage model, and it seems like from the article it seemed like the ridership model makes much more sense. It's more efficient than having a lot of fixed routes just to provide coverage. So the structure that we have
This is the transfer stuff from Wave,
Okay, but
that's
so,
48,000.
And I'll
That's
resend
for over
that too.
5 years, so if you divide it up over 10, we kind of thought
I was just thinking,
about
if we could sort of like
10,000.
combine, you know,
Those
this,
numbers.
that would sort of give us a sense of, you know, sort of whether, you know, extending out makes sense in terms of ridership. It seems like there's already, it's sort of pointing in that direction already based on the numbers, but we know from the development that's in the offing. Plus, we have you know, one of the densest parts of Scioto Township is Scioto Farms.
Mhm.
And that's already existing. That's, and I'm guessing like the Lakestone apartment riders, you know, that there's always going to be riders within that area of the township. It really seems to me that finding a way to begin extending fixed routes out that way makes sense. I'm just wondering, given the earlier part of the discussion, if there's sort of a phased way to do it, that would like your flex service in Pittsfield and Ypsilanti Township sort of give us some data that we could sort of, you know, we could kind of test it and before we make the full investment in a fixed route.
You guys think?
Yeah, we can work together to do that for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
Mhm.
Because remember when Forrest mentioned a couple meetings ago, we are still constrained by driver and bus resources. So I think you guys, you know, helping building that up incrementally, you know, using something that way may be able to pay a role feels like a really good way to
For
approach.
2-hour frequency is not gonna get it. I mean, that's not gonna bring people for the new development on Jackson, that kind of frequency is not gonna encourage people to come out and ride the bus.
So what's the right formula, I guess?
Right now, they're getting every 2-hour service.
Yeah,
And we have really good ridership. And so I think there is a case for increasing our frequency. The only concern on Wave side, increasing frequency is likely going to cost more. Even if we do, if we are able to do one vehicle and one driver in 1 hour, we're already doubling the mileage.
right.
Right, so no matter how it's cut, it is going to cost more, and I can work on those numbers for you.
And that's the thing about public transit is the majority of your operating costs are wrapped up in the labor. It's not the vehicles or the maintenance or things like that.
Mhm.
Even if you run a smaller vehicle, that's going to take a little bit of the cost down, but it's not going to cut your labor cost down, that's the bulk of
Yeah.
It's probably true of
operations.
any service industry.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, on that point with what Will is suggesting, if we consider expanding and, you know, your fixed costs are pretty much the same, is that somewhat cost effective for the township?
I would say out of any of the options that you can do at this point, using an AETA fixed route will definitely be the most expensive.
Mhm.
Okay.
So trying to figure out, and I think this is what Will is kind of alluding to, is trying to figure out what are the intermediate steps, either wave service or flex ride, before eventually getting up to that fixed route. You know, how can we keep those costs down? But, you know, if you're gonna put more service out there, the only way that you keep costs the same at this point is to take it out of somewhere else. So if we're talking about service expansion, even if we use, you know, you guys were to use wave or flex ride, it's still probably going to be talking about some cost increases.
Right.
Speaking of that, this letter of September 2023, that lists you've seen this, okay. And so 2024 is 497,000 increases in 2025,
So that,
580. Is that part of the increase in frequency?
yes,
Okay, and so right now we're at every half hour throughout the day and night, which is really good. And so that increase in frequency, would that go to every 15 minutes?
the service out here. Service out here is weekday every half hour until 6 o'clock. And so then after 6 o'clock, it switches over to hourly. And then on the weekends, it's every hour. What we're going to do with that service expansion, coming up next August is we're gonna expand those hours so they start, especially on the weekends. We're gonna expand those hours so we start a little earlier in the morning and go a lot later in the evening. And then on the weekends, service will operate every 30 minutes before 6 o'clock and then switch over to every 60 after
That's
6
right.
o'clock.
At 7 o'clock, it goes every hour.
And so even if for the millage options, even if we were to do the just keep current service, there's still gonna have to be a slight increase to help cover those costs going forward.
And what you're saying with the additional dollars that are reflected in this letter, you're saying that you're looking to increase the hours, not the frequency.
Both, on the weekends, both.
So
She's gonna
it's
add-
going every half hour on the weekend instead
Yep.
of every hour. But during Monday through Friday, the night service would remain every hour.
Right.
So I guess the other question I would have is whether that's something that the township could decide, or is that something that ATA is deciding?
That is a question for.
And the reason
folks.
I'm asking is because,
No, I
if we're
understand.
talking about, expansion, we might want to do something different for those same dollars when we know that I don't think there's an interest in increasing.
Okay, yeah, no, that's something I can, let me bring that forward to Forrest because, you are a purchase of service agreement partner and not necessarily part of the millage, so, what your goals are.
Yeah, I'd like to at least know, if that's an option, if
Okay.
it helps us get to some of our other goals.
Now, you also said that that expansion that you just discussed about
Because we would add a couple extra hours in the morning, so it would start, 8 o'clock or so. And then it would run several hours later in the evening, so instead of cutting off at 6, it would cut off around 9.
So say 8:21 at Meyer, 8:42 at Blake Transit Center downtown. Or the Jackson part, I'm just focusing on Saturday and Sunday, it's 9:21.
So we'd extend that a little bit later. And then start it a little bit earlier. So the theory on that one is when we did our long range plan several years ago, we went out and we asked the riders, the people that were in the ridership to go. We asked them, we gave them a couple different like objectives or goals. We said, if you had to prioritize, you want more direct service between places? Would you want earlier, later service, which we call span of service? So would you want a larger span? Would you want more frequency? Then we asked people to prioritize all of those, and I can send you guys a copy of the finalized long range plan. And so we said yes to everything, which is, so then what we did then is to ask them, well, if you guys had to prioritize these, what would you want to do first? And so that's what the millage plan, the millage for Ypsilanti City, Ypsilanti Township, and Ann Arbor. That was the first part of this long range plan, was in answering that question of what's your topmost priority. And it really worked out very nicely that people wanted more enhanced weekend service, which meant, we didn't have to buy more buses or anything like that. So it worked out quite nicely that way.
So they wanted longer hours.
And more
and they
frequency
wanted
on the
more
weekends.
frequency.
And what we're finding, and what I'm hoping when our data systems come back online, I think what we're gonna find is because a lot of office workers, they're coming back maybe 3, maybe 2 to 4 days a week now. That ridership curve that we have that goes up the peak and goes down and goes back up. We're expecting to see that maybe those peaks flatten down a little bit, but the nighttime ridership, while it drops off significantly, it still has recovered better, and the weekend ridership never really left because those are more transit dependent people. So this also is kind of it's a plan to see if by targeting and trying to make the weekend service more attractive to the people that never left, is it going to be opening up other options for them to be able to use the service to do other things other than just go to work and so we'll have to see over the next couple of years how that works. And, you know, if it turns out that the experiment, you know, a lot of people saw on paper that they absolutely want longer hours, but they're not using it, then we'll just have to, you know, figure out how to redeploy those services.
Jan,
So-
Jan, do you have your hand up again?
I think she does, maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking about some other data that might be worth having, and that would be, do we have like the larger employers in SCIO identified and mapped? Is there a way to do that? Because what I'm thinking is, you know, Will, that you know, that industrial park that's being developed, they had some pretty hefty number of employees. And I'm just trying to think if we could get a handle on where, and maybe we haven't looked at that ever or in a while. It would also be interesting because I'm thinking from a, you know, also an engagement point for supporting public transit. You know, would Meyer or some of the larger employers actually, I don't know, help support, you know, a Go Pass, or help support, you know, public transit in another way? I don't know. It depends where their employees are coming from, I think, but it would be good just to identify the larger employers. I think I believe that.
I don't know if we have that data.
Or how you would get that data.
Or not just the large employers, because we, Wave, have been approached, and we can probably talk a little bit more about this, from the downtown vendors, not vendors, but the business in downtown Chelsea. They'd like to extend, you know, service to bring people in. They don't have to worry about how much they drink or whatever. They can get right there, get right home. So there may be some businesses in our community. That might be some
Yeah.
businesses.
And certainly the DDA is a good basis for a lot of it, but there may be some outside of the DDA that we should be taking into account too.
I don't know if our assessor has information about number of employees. We also have now a fire marshal who's doing inspections of all commercial buildings, and maybe they're gathering some of that data as well.
Well, why don't
The
we
census
maybe
might
take
have
a look
some-
at it?
Census,
Yeah,
yeah.
see if we can get that information. Yeah, we'll work on that, Jan.
Thanks, because I think that could tell us, you know, even from a planning standpoint too, I think it would be helpful.
So but it sounds like we need number of employees and number of drinkers as well. It sounds like something that Chelsea's doing.
Let's call them taxpayers.
Potential
Yeah, come on now.
imbibers.
People that eat food.
So
Consumers.
yeah, one other area, as you talk about goals, you know, I'd like to maybe have some consideration related to areas in the township that might be viable for the flex ride. And we take a look at that.
When you say, take a look at it, Joyce, you mean also we want to know what some numbers might look like?
Yeah, the numbers, the density question, you know, he had referenced that it works in certain areas better than other areas. So, you know, I'd like to kind of get a sense of how it might work here in Scioto Township.
Yeah, so Wave provides door-to-door service in Scioto Township, and I think you are our second most used township. Chelsea is first, and then Scioto, and then Sylvan. So there's definitely demand in your township. Mhm.
I don't have that in front of me, that chart of wave ridership figures, but
I'll send it to you.
does it provide sort of a similar kind of
I can certainly do this. pulled it for Kim really quick in like less than a day. So it's just like an Excel sheet with lists of information and stuff, but
I've
I
seen
can-
it, I just don't have.
okay, yeah, I can do a map like this, particularly where we both are having similar stops, so you can see.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If we could sort of hold up the two maps together.
Yeah.
So we could see where there's overlap.
Yeah.
And
Cause there's two things being provided by Wave, right? Door to door and fixed route along Jackson. From Jackson Plaza, so west of Wagner, west of.
so two similar maps, really, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can make some maps.
And their Jackson Road fixed route goes all the way to Thornton Farms, so it goes all the way to Parker,
So, yeah, beyond,
yes.
it's kind of like Buzz Lightyear. It's like Township and beyond.
It's no, that's Sciotown. Well, they go, yeah, it does go, it goes, it's
Just
just
beyond,
Thornton, but
yeah.
right there, that's the border of Parker Road. which is the border of-
Yeah.
So Wave covers the whole township, right? So would the question be, since there's already door-to-door service that covers the entire township, would this be an enhancement of it? Like, what? So, try to figure out how to ask this
Why do you need an
question.
additional flex service?
Like what, I mean, would,
What are you looking for
Right.
with it?
Maybe the question is exactly what are the requirements in order to access the services for Wade versus Flex Ride?
They're both, you have to call dispatcher. and
Okay.
book a ride.
Mhm.
So anyone can do it
Yeah.
that wants it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe having the maps from Wade will help us to see, is it, is this necessary? Or what would be perceived by riders as an enhancement? The frequency, I mean, obviously, one thing that out is that frequency tends to get people in the habit of using mass transit. So maybe if there was more frequent fixed route service, more people would use it, but I don't know if that's true.
Right.
So one of the things that I thought, an early board member, is that we only provided Wave door-to-door service within 3/4 of a mile of the Jackson Road corridor. After talking to Marie, that's not true. We just cover wherever you're at and you're in Sion. Like if I
There's
can
no
go from
restriction.
Zeeb
No.
Road and I can go.
It is a
from-
higher fee, just like some of ATA service, and so we'll encourage people if they're on the fixed route to take the fixed route because it's then 50 cents or $1 opposed to 5 or more. But yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense though, if you're like, if you live on Zeeb and Joy Road.
That's why we're doing free fare February. I'm gonna convince you guys to adjust fares.
She wants to
So-
go to no fares.
I wanna go to $1 fare.
Oh, this is new,
No.
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have the latest.
Right?
Fair.
Right?
I said, whoa.
Kind of speak on what some people in Scioto have asked, because I'm in the community numerous times a week in all the communities. So even when I'm in like Chelsea or Dexter, I have people from outside areas come to me and make comments. And the people have talked to me in Scioto so far, they like the route, and a lot of the calls I get is actually about the transferring. So
The
a lot of people do use that. Well, the Jacks, a lot they either get on the Jacks or the community connector because they go to the same stop, so people know to look for either one. The biggest thing I've gotten is a couple people asked if we would stop somewhere else in Style Farms, because I'm going out and getting more younger people in the Northwest, they're having their kids, especially kids that have to go to college, they've been using our bus to get to Meyer and then take AATA to school. The one thing I've gotten so far is just another stop in Scioto Farms, so that because it's such a big park, so it's
Yeah.
easier for people to get to the bus. That's what I've heard so far,
Yeah.
between the deviations and the door to door.
So is that shelter that the DDA put out on Jackson in front?
Our bus can't park over there, so they can go over there, but to walk over, the bus drivers told me where that shelter is, the bus can't park in front of it because it's too parking.
Turn around.
Turn around, like
Oh.
you need to. So they still park by the mailboxes because it's the easiest location for a bus driver to get.
So let me get this straight. The Jackson Road connector the fixed route goes into.
It just goes it goes to the mailboxes, that's what.
Oh, okay, that's not.
People, I'm just letting you guys know, that's what people ask for South Township.
Well, that's
That's
gonna
so
interfere with
So-
frequency.
Yeah, so is that a
That's-
problem to provide? I mean, as far as a second stop in that area?
We can look into it.
Okay.
Fixed route, you gotta be here, here at that certain time, so.
Yeah,
you
so
have
we
to-
just adjust the schedule a
The
little bit.
mailboxes are by the community center and then.
When you first, on Jackson Road, when you first turn into Scio, they're like right up there on the right.
Okay,
Soon
so
as you
not all
pull
the
in.
way.
Not all the way in.
Yeah,
It's just right in if you turn into the community.
And remember,
It's a
that
big
takes up
part.
time. And we wanna get to a half hour service in that
Right,
stretch. But I wanted to bring this other thing up. We, you brought to our attention last time that the Dexter, there's several families in the Scioto Farms complex that wanted to use schools of choice and go to Dexter schools, because it's really covered by Ann Arbor schools. And Dexter schools, because it's school of choice, they can't come and pick the kids up. So you asked us if we could use the Scioto millage dollars to do that. And I got to thinking about it, we were open to that. I think we were shaking our heads up and down, yes, but I want to be careful about that and look at that a little more. Because we're in this phase of redeveloping our transit goals and dollars. And so I just thought that we should say that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I promised you.
Or I thought I should say it. I don't know
Right,
if
I
everybody on
promised
the
you a
committee
schedule and
agrees.
an update budget and how much that it would affect the service, and so I need to get that information to you as well. I think on the wave side, a piece of information that I don't have yet is when we get the dollars from AATA for your millage, how that's supposed to be used. Right now, it's part of a larger pass-through contract that we have with AATA, and it's just like, here's your lump sum. And I don't actually know how it's supposed to be distributed, what your intention is for those dollars to be
Yeah.
distributed. And so if you want to, talking back to goals, if you want more frequency and if you want a longer span, that would mean, but not pay more, that might mean that we have to take away some service from door to door. And so that's just a larger piece of the conversation that from Wave side, I'm really interested in how you want to allocate the dollars that we get.
Okay.
So maybe there's some flexibility there in terms of shifting
Moving
how the
resources,
resources are.
yeah.
being-
Yeah,
That might be more responsive to the community.
sure.
So you're gonna get us that breakdown.
Yeah, I wrote
What
that. I'm
as
gonna
it's
get
current.
some extra, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, just to remind everyone, we're past 3:30.
So in
Friday,
some ways, it'd be good
Friday.
to have
And you
numbers
remind
that sort of
everybody
align
Friday.
with
I'll do
their
that.
numbers.
Yeah, most definitely.
So can I just kind of recap some of the things we talked about related to goals for discussion, maybe for our next meeting, and then on the community engagement piece, it's on our agenda. I don't know if you want to continue and have that discussion today, or maybe add it to the next agenda.
Well, aren't we bumping up against the deadline if we don't
Yeah.
get going on our community engagement?
Yeah.
So
So that was
But I
like the
wanted-
survey?
I'm not sure, I missed the last meeting.
Yeah,
That's when you guys
we
talked about it.
assigned everything to you. Will.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
So, question on that. There were two different elections that were given as possible, go times to
Yeah.
place the millage on the ballot.
I think we're aiming for August.
We're looking at, I believe, August, based on conversations we've had internally.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's I could say now that if there's gonna be any sort of community engagement piece, that's going to make it very tight, and it's gonna have to be fairly limited in scope.
Yes, I think that's true.
Well, I think we're talking about community engagement in two aspects. The first is to really kind of get a sense of maybe what the community's interest is related to, transportation, which would help us, kind of put together whatever the services are that we're going to look at moving forward. So I think that's a part of it. The other part of community engagement is once we determine, what we want to accomplish, then it's a matter of, how do we do the outreach and engage the community in that process? if,
Okay.
you know, if there's a need to do that. So I think there's two phases to it.
I don't understand the difference. So one's the survey,
The
and then
survey,
the outreach.
yeah, I think the survey is to try to get a sense of what the ridership and even our businesses and others might expect related to transit services. I mean, we've talked about it here.
Mhm.
There may be other ideas, you know, in the universe that we're not familiar with. So I think help us get to some of that information.
So,
One
So-
aspect of the survey, though, I question whether people even know what's available. And I don't know how you capture, you know, are you aware of these services? Because I would bet that a lot of people don't know what's available.
Do you guys want me to target, because I can tell you what I'm gonna do for community engagement in Scioto Township. And how it's helped in other areas.
Okay.
What I do to get the services out. So I started with, I have a whole like 2.5 months on you at Wave. I've been there since October 25th. I do a lot of events. Actually, I was in Scioto Township for myself in AATA my first week here. I was at the sustainability fair. I have found that going to events and talking to people are getting more people on the bus. Survey wise, we have a Grass Lake survey. And when I hired in 3 months, I have gotten over 4 times the responses they had than before I was here. And what I am doing is I'm going to Grass Lake and I'm talking to the township and people see it and I'm talking to the village and I did a public forum and I go present to Kiwanis and I do these booths and it works. I'm getting more surveys. I have people coming up to me like, oh, we're excited about this route in Grass Lake. And I'm like, you weren't there. They go, the whole town's talking about it. So actually getting someone to go out there helps. For Scioto Town, so what I've been doing now for our communities is, we currently had to redo all of our route books and all of that, and we have that now, like the one that Kim has. I am currently going through each of our communities, so it's taking me a while because we cover such a large area. But I'm actually going through and walking through the businesses once a month, and I'll refill these. And as I'm walking through, I'm explaining to all the businesses, the people that are in there. And it has really helped because it's helped people understand more, even between us and AATA. I always mention, when I even talk about the Grass Lake route, that AATA and us meet up and people can ride from Dexter and Chelsea all the way to Slane and Bond. And then when we get in Grass Lake, Jackson's going to meet with us. And then it's gonna be possible from Jackson, and it opens everybody's eyes up. So I am spreading the word.
So when are you doing that in Scioto?
So
Businesses, government,
since
residents?
I started the week of, the next week after the WWRA meeting, so I've been doing it for 2 weeks now. I haven't been in Scioto yet. I had been in parts of Manchester. Honestly, I went around Manchester and you know how small Manchester is. I honestly got a couple outlying businesses and I got one side of Main Street down to 2 hours. Cause I am literally, it's taking a while, but I am literally going through and explaining to everybody and it's opening their eyes more than just putting my brochures on the table and
So-
getting the word out.
Sasha, what I want to target you right now.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've kind of gotten feedback about a survey from some of our governmental folk here is that it was too expensive. It's a lot to do a mail out, it'd be like $9 grand.
Oh, yeah, to mail it to
So,
everybody, yeah.
That would be.
But I don't want to misuse your resources at Wave, but I'm curious when you would start doing that at AATA and,
Or how would
I'm
you?
sorry, AATA, oh my gosh.
So I'm currently, so I
Inside
can tell you right
Township.
now that I plan on, I think I'm going to Stockbridge next week. So it would probably be the week after, so I'm going to Stockbridge and trying to do some in Chelsea, so the week after, so not next week, the week after, so end of February, beginning of March, I'm gonna go through Scioto Township and I'm gonna start talking to businesses, but that's not all we're doing. I do events in all the areas, so I just signed up to be a sponsor for the Jackson Road Cruise. And what I'm gonna do with that is we are actually gonna be a checkpoint. I don't know if you guys ever run the road cruise, they literally have hundreds of cars, there are thousands of people do it. You go around to these different checkpoints and you have to check in to get your prize. And everybody wants the prize with these nice baskets, you get tickets. So that is one thing we're doing. So I'm doing that because as a checkpoint, everybody has to come to me. And I know that a lot of people do attend this, because I used to be the president of the WNBA and we used to run it. So that is one way that I can actually reach a lot of people inside of Township because they're gonna come, and honestly, that is what I found out was best, is talking to people person to person. So if you guys have events in Scioto Township you know about too, I have no problem going to these events and getting the word out, but I have found It's time consuming, but I don't mind, and it's honestly the best way. People are scared to get on the buses.
Mhm.
Adults, children, never rode a bus before. I could take my kids on one of our buses, so they start riding.
And we have,
Adults are the same way. When
Yeah.
people get on them at our events, like I can get them shuttles for everything. I brought my B&I group out when I presented at the hotel at the Holiday Inn. And those people were, every time people get on that bus, were like, oh, this is great. These buses are great. This is really easy. So that's why I'm trying to get out to events, talk to people, but then have our buses there. So people can be like, oh, this isn't so bad. Like,
and we have the additional problem with WAG, is that people think our service is for seniors and handicapped, and that's not true. It's for everybody.
So Sasha, what's your goal, as far as the outreach? Is it more of an educational purpose or
to
is
get
it
people on the bus.
just to get
I
it on?
specifically, when I do presentations, because I do them all throughout, I tell people right up front, I just want people on the bus. My ultimate goal is the community relations coordinator in our coverage areas. When someone says, I need a ride, people automatically say call away.
So the question I guess I have is, how can WAVE and AAATA help us somehow get a sense of what people might want to see related to transportation services?
I think a really easy way, she mentioned what was the
Jackson.
check-in? Yeah, Jackson Road Crew. Road Cruise.
The cruise,
Cruise.
but that's.
But if we
We
had,
have until the summer.
Yeah, see,
It's June 8th.
yeah,
all
we're
right,
kind of.
yeah,
But-
never mind.
Okay,
But
so this
things
is
like
where,
that, we can ask, hey, what are you looking, this is what we do as WAVE, what are you looking for? We've done things where there's a board and people put up sticky notes, we've done things where there's a survey, they just take the QR code and they take the online survey. I mean, that data is our data, we're using that to inform our services, but if we're doing one specifically for Township, that's definitely information we share with you.
Well, it seems like there's, if I'm understanding you correctly, Joyce, you're sort of saying there's two needs that we have. One is sort of immediate, and that is if, in any way we can, in short order, get information that will inform the decision about what kind of a ballot proposal to put out. And then the other one is more like what you're describing,
The educational component.
which is sort of
Yeah.
boosting ridership, educating the community about what's available.
Well, and
what I can do on my end, so I do for the study, is if you guys have events or places that I can go talk to people, or even events where I can be a vendor, then my goal would be like, if you guys have sheets, like we have Grass Lake flyer, Grass Lake study flyers with the QR code right there, right? So I can go to these events, and that's the way I'm getting people to fill out the study we have, is asking them in person at events. So if you guys have any events in Township that I could set up at, I will do that. And then if you guys give me the sheets, or if you guys, then I can hand them out and say, hey, do this. And when I'm asking people, like when I handed the sheets around Grass Lake, businesses were scanning it and doing it right there. So if you guys have events in Township, I could go out and do that. Or if you guys have the sheet too, I can take them to events I do in the outlying areas where I do have people from South Township talking to me, or even where I network with all these businesses because I'm part of the WWBA. I'm on one of the committees. So I network with a lot of businesses in Township, and I know a lot of them. So same thing, if you guys had a flyer that I could hand out to people, even if it's like a quarter sheet one, and put them in forward. If you give those to me, I will start handing those out. Like WWBA has a casino night in March. So if I have those, I could tell people about it and see if they can fill them out. They have a quarterly meeting, and I always do one of the business tables there at the quarterly meetings. So that's April, I believe, is their next one. So if you guys have those sheets, I will take them with me, and they're from Township, and say, hey, then can you fill this out?
Yeah, so if you want our help, we are more than happy to help. She's in the community a ton. I go out every once in a while as well, people getting on and off our bus. You just need to get us what you want,
Yeah,
so we can get it out.
So I know, at our last meeting, we had talked about kind of a short survey, I'm thinking maybe 5 key questions. That's not going to take up a lot of time for someone to respond to it. We might, again, look at how we can somehow access the ridership to get feedback.
I think that's the key. I mean, it seems like there's sort of key segments that you want to get
Yeah,
data
so,
from.
and I think that's something that we can look into and talk internally if we want to do have some sort of survey available on our buses for riders who are on those routes to take, so you'll
And they
you'll
can
get
just
a.
hand them to the driver on the way
Yes.
up.
Yeah, and hoping you'll get a
Exactly.
more narrow set of data points, building off that. I think everything that's been discussed is tremendous grassroots,
Mhm.
kind of advocacy and engagement to try to increase ridership and just educate, so that. But it's trying to get the general sense. So I do think, us doing some sort of survey of our riders, particularly in the area, we can look into that. I'm assuming we probably have some sort of data points from the long range plan. I don't know if they're geographically pinpointed or any sort of feedback in that, but no, maybe not.
No. Try to
Okay,
process what you're.
any sort of, so the information we took in via the survey for the going into the long range plan goals for that, were citizens surveyed on that, or was it more stakeholder engagement?
Both.
Okay.
I'm not. Oh,
The second tier question would be geographically
right.
alienating it, which is probably harder to do.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
I'll ask Forrest. I know
Okay.
we've got all raw data for that, but I
Yeah.
think
So-
what might be most beneficial is if we, in addition to that, is if we come up with whatever the 5 questions are.
Yeah. I'm thinking-
If that goes up onto, probably onto your website somewhere, if there's a QR code that goes to it, just have drivers just throw those out.
Sure.
And
I
put it
think
up
that's
on the
what I
website.
think
Oh, yeah, we can post
What
it.
Shasta was talking about, just like a little flyer that
Yeah.
has the QR
Yeah,
code on it.
and
Yeah.
AATA and somehow coordinate and have a time frame for getting those responses. It would then help us kind of focus on that other element. We've talked about what we think might be of interest moving forward, but we really don't have any feedback.
I think
From
we,
the
I
writer.
think we probably, this can't really wait until our next meeting because.
Yeah, it needs to be done.
We
now.
probably need to have it out next week if
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
So somehow we need to come up with the questions, put it up online, the QR code, and then get flyers out to both WAVE and AATA. And to local businesses too, because I think
Yeah.
that's, we also need to reach out to
Businesses.
potential.
Of what their needs are.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And just, non AATA add on, asking your locals to post it on their Facebook too will help get
Mhm.
additional feedback from citizen members, any sort of community groups. That'll just help you kind of get a wide range of feedback from folks and make sure it's seen by the largest audience possible.
Sure.
And if you do something like that, I'll ask everybody in all of my networks between Rotary and everything to start sharing that out too, so you guys can get more.
Okay, so as a plan to try to put together the questions and, the process related to disseminating the information, can we maybe have like in for either you, Jeff?
Mhm.
Chris on our end, Shasta on your end, come together maybe next week early and kind of put together the questions and forward that
Maybe just leave it
information
at
to
the
everyone.
Maybe just even a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we could do a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Because that is something that's time sensitive.
I know just from,
Still-
our end, we can't have it look like we're engaging in any sort of
Right.
campaign activities, but I think that if you're simply asking for feedback,
We're
That's-
asking for feedback.
that's-
We're
that's
not
a fine way
asking,
for us to
yeah,
Right.
to sway a
Right.
vote because we're not even
Sure.
close to that process.
Sure.
Right, well, we're just getting a kind of a draft to get your input on, I think.
And
And we would do it, and if we did a meeting, it would not be a quorum of the.
well, I'm
of the
thinking
committee.
really if we could get like Chris, Jeff, Shasta together to work on that, and then if they could get it to us, we can at least by email, let them know if, if it looks good or not, or we can then call another meeting.
Yeah.
We can call a special meeting.
Sure.
Or we can just meet next Friday.
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, I think, my sense is that we know we want to do some kind of
Yeah.
a survey to gather public input, that there's particular segments of the population, the riders in particular,
And the
the current riders,
businesses.
and then the businesses, in terms of, potential uses that we want to reach out to. So, I don't know that we need to have another vote on that or anything.
No, I think we just need to kind of develop the survey document, something that's really.
See if you both agree on surveys, the right route is just.
Yeah.
So kind of figure out how to get that information out there. And let's come up with a time frame in order to gather the information.
Probably, when is our, so our next meeting is,
We meet every other week.
Right.
So,
Desert Sands is similarly some.
And when you say
Cheap.
feedback, you're looking for feedback
That's March 1st.
based on what we have now and what they would want in the future. So what enhancements
Yeah,
would they
right.
be looking
5
for?
or 6 questions that
Yeah.
would give us some information.
give us that
Using
information.
ChatGPT to just get a few questions going.
Well, it's-
I went out
How-
and did that written survey with that printed survey, we have two, because that's got any questions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was the Transportation Security Index.
So is everybody available to meet the group, entire group on that's March
March
1st?
first is would be our next meeting. And so I'm thinking, today's the 16th. If we could even get that information out next week, it would allow
More time.
responses to
Yeah.
come back. Yeah. So who wants to take the lead on it? On pulling together, the meeting and putting together the survey document.
Chris, this really needs to be a SIO thing.
Okay,
Mhm.
it's up. I'll put it together then. Do you have,
I'll work with you.
okay, so do you have sample questions or
So that's
something
what
like
I'm gonna
this?
look for over the
Okay,
weekend. I'll go to our long range
We've got
plan
it.
and see if I can find the survey instrument.
okay,
Okay.
You're not trying to reinvent the wheel like you're asking.
Right,
People
that's
have
what I was
solid
thinking.
dates.
I've done a little bit of survey design, and simple questionnaire kind of stuff, so
Mhm.
And I'll-
I can help.
I'll do what, what Chris mentioned as well. If I can pull out any data that looks like it's silo specific from that long range plan, we'll forward that along too. But yeah, so we'll make ourselves available to help and then.
If you guys go to our homepage, the first call to action button is the Grass Lake study. It's actually a study we're doing right now to find Grass Lake's needs.
Oh,
That'd be
I
a-
ripped that off perfectly.
Yeah.
It's based off of U of M's Transportation and Security Index.
So Grass Lake.
It's the grass, if you go to rideaway.bus.org, whether you're on your phone or your computer, it's the only call to action button that comes up on the homepage when it first opens.
Perfect. Good. Great place to start.
And honestly, even online, I went to the senior center in states if the seniors needed help with the computers, and it took them 2 minutes or less to fill it out. So it was a really quick survey.
Okay, so, and I'll send a summary out from this meeting related to the goals, the things that we talked about. We talked about the phased way to expand a fixed route going towards Baker Road in that area. We talked about that. And that sounds like a question for you. Flex ride areas or expanding wave to areas in the township that may not be covered right now. We talked about the feasibility of doing that, so not sure, but I think that's,
So the fixed route could be either AAA or wave.
It's already being covered by
Right,
wave,
right, so I
but
think.
it's 2 hours.
So I
every
think
2
if we were to do a fixed route expansion, I think. If I understood the earlier conversation correctly, probably we would be looking at wave first.
Mhm.
And then eventually, depending on the growth of ridership, a fixed route with AATA, right?
And
Did I
then-
remember that correctly?
No.
Yeah. I've just,
Well, AATA is giving us numbers that include their expansion.
Right, what it
And
would
then what
cost.
we're talking about, what we've been brought up is the expansion, just along.
We need to have them both so we can compare.
but I think too, Will, on the fixed route question, there was a question about the frequency of the route.
Right,
And, whether, like, for example, in the upcoming fiscal year, you were looking at higher frequencies. With that 500 and then how much was that? 597,
Yeah, somewhere around there.
597,000. So the question is whether we could, maybe look at expanding and not have, the earlier morning, later evenings, and potentially, less frequency as far as the half an hour. We might do 45 minutes to get us to what we need to get us to Baker Road and some of those other areas where we have development. So, those are the type of questions I think need to be considered, as you think about
I see.
expanding. You follow me on that?
okay, so
Yeah.
I'll clarify on that. So using whatever those potential amounts are that are listed in that one memo from Forest.
Mhm.
But, so there still would be a millage increase. Cause
It would still be, as far as our cost, I'm thinking, let me just grab that sheet.
So
so what Forest would have to do is he'd have to come up with a
different
revised
plan.
number for if the service kind of stayed similar to what it is now, but the cost increased over the next couple of years, what that would cost for the existing fixed route service, but then whatever the increases are that are listed in there that don't involve the existing, then we would take those increases there and then apply them toward
Right.
potential waste
So
service.
Other ways, yeah.
Okay.
So,
this let me just say this, Jordan, this letter talks about the expansion
Correct.
yeah.
and longer hours. And I just